Journey to Business, the show where you can grow your career, your business, or yourself. Your host, Melissa Walker and Jeff Camino, will join experts in guiding you through your professional growth journey.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Journey to Business, here brought to you out of Fishbowl Radio Network in Arlington, Texas. I'm your host, Melissa Walker. With
Jeff Camino.
Yeah, and we are glad to have you listening in or watching us here on Facebook. We are here with two very special guests. We've got Darin and Lon. Say hi real quick, and then we'll get into the introductions here in a second.
Hi real quick.
And good evening.
So as you can tell, the very special guest. He literally repeats what we say, so, doing good. Now, but remember, this is a show brought to you based on reciprocity. So what that means is that we want you to join the show. Feel free to call in any time. If you have any questions, you can reach us at 214-431-5062. You can also look us up on Facebook Live at Next Career Co., or you can go to www.j2bradio.com. Make sure to tune in, send any referrals, ask any questions. We want you to participate as much as possible in the show. So getting back to our guests, let's start with you, Lon. If you could quickly just tell us who you are and just talk about what we're going to talk about on the show.
All right. Well, as you said, my name is Lon Ricker with Ricker Dynamics. And I tell people I'm a recovering engineer. I spent 20 years in the corporate world in software development and test before I dropped out. And that's actually how I know Tom. I worked for him for a number of years at startup companies. And I found myself, we may or may not get into that later, but I found myself volunteering at a nonprofit at a mobile soup kitchen in Dallas, feeding the homeless. And next thing I knew, I was raising money and building nonprofits. So in a nutshell, that's what I do now. After about 10 years of working for nonprofits, now I kind of consult with whoever I can pick and choose that I like to want to work with and help them raise money, really raise friends, relationships. Yeah.
Well, I know you're definitely a good relationship guy. Everywhere I go at a networking event, I see Lon Ricker there. And that's I mean, the moment I met him, I just started seeing you. I mean, it was funny, actually, kind of started seeing you everywhere. And that is actually, I think, where we all want to be, isn't it? Where we can pick and choose who we want to work with.
Oh, yeah, that's the ideal, right?
I mean, that sounds perfect. So real quickly, let's go over to you, Darin, if you can just introduce yourself real quick.
Well, gosh, I'm bummed. I want to be Lon. Can I do that?
Yeah, sure.
Come on,
but no, very nice to meet you, and glad you're here. And wow, what a great story. I would say, following along with that, I'm somewhat of a recovering technology business development guy, and have landed with a very, very good friend in a company called Level C Solutions, providing strategic staffing and recruiting for companies. So basically working with owners and sitting on their side of the fence and helping them with their people challenges. That's what we do.
Yeah, we've actually had Brad on the show before, so everybody, this is Brad with Level C. So hopefully you're listening in, Brad, to see what we're doing over here.
Keep us honest.
So today's topic is going to be really focused on the nonprofit world, nonprofit space. And you have some interesting experience and information to share about that. So if somebody's looking to go into the nonprofit space to open up their own business, what do they ask about? What, fundraising? So that's something you know a little bit about. And also, if you're even not a nonprofit, but you're just, regular, normal for-profit organization, as you grow, you have a tendency to either reach out to nonprofits for help or get asked for help or go back and forth. And that's what we're going to talk about today is partnerships and fundraising. So if you want to go ahead and start in, let's talk about fundraising first. Money is always important, right?
It is. Obviously, with a nonprofit, it's very important. And but I like to refer to it as friend raising instead of fundraising. Yeah. People, they're scared of it. They think, I have to go ask for money. And really what I do is I tend to build the relationships, and I help nonprofit owners, build those relationships so that when there is a need, it's not the first time they talk to somebody. I could have probably asked you for $20 to help me put gas in my car tonight, and if you had it, you'd have helped me.
Oh yeah.
I just met Darin. If I said, "Hey, you got $20 for me," he'd have probably said, "Oh man, you know what? I had to get my kids shoes today or something." Come up with some excuses.
Right.
It's easier to ask for money.
He just said, yeah, that's what he would say.
Right.
Exactly.
Yep,
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'll use that one.
It's easier to ask people we know for money and people that like us. So if you look at it from the perspective of relationships and partnerships, kind of like the networking thing, I don't go to networking to figure out who will hire me. I go to figure out who I can help.
Right.
And it's all about those connections and those relationships. So fundraising is the same way.
So I think that's probably how Lon got where he is, where he can pick and choose his clients, because he is out there for reciprocity, helping others, and it all circles back. So just to kind of point that out, I think that, I talk to people a lot of times whenever they're in the job search process. I'm like, if you went to a job search or career fair and you went with the mentality that you were there to help somebody else get a job or find something, then 9% of these rooms will be empty, because somebody that can help somebody in this room. I can almost guarantee you. So take that mindset, and eventually it'll come back to you as well.
Well, and that's a perfect thing to take to nonprofits. We talk about, I'm sure everybody's heard that's ever looked for a job, the worst time to start networking is when you need a job.
Exactly.
You need to network ahead of time. So I share with friends, I was like, you've got a job now, that's great. You need to go pick a nonprofit that you love, and you need to bury yourself in it. You need to, if you can volunteer, even if it's just once a month or whatever, plug into that nonprofit, work with them, and you'll find that the other people that are also at that nonprofit volunteering and helping, you already have one thing in common, and that's whatever they're doing.
The passion
they're
is,
saving
right.
animals or working with seniors or whatever. You're going to find yourself around a bunch of like-minded people. And I've seen it at nonprofits where I watched at the Supermobile. I saw some guys would come down every Wednesday and help take bulk food out to feed the homeless. Mm-hmm. And then after they were serving the homeless, they were going off and having lunch together. And these were guys from different businesses on other parts of town. And pretty soon they were doing business together. So they were networking through their giving back and doing good. So I tell people, pick a nonprofit and build relationships there with the other people that support them. And it'll come back, whether it's looking for jobs or business or clients or whatever.
Well, you're also building skills. So a lot of times in a nonprofit sector, you're going to get skills and experience that you may not get in your corporate environment, because they're smaller environments and people have to do a little bit of everything whenever it comes to that kind of, culture. So it's a great place to, I tell people a lot of times that are looking for not, even if you are on the job search, go ahead and spend some time volunteering, because you're going to build skills and you're going to meet people and build those relationships. So to your point, though, doing it while you're employed, even better.
Well,
and it goes on a resume.
Oh, definitely. And an angle I hadn't considered, Suzanne Smith, who is very big in the nonprofit world here in Dallas, at an event, she was at a panel, and she talked about everybody, what you talk about. I want to start a nonprofit. And she said, even not just with nonprofits, but anything, before you become an entrepreneur, become an intrapreneur. Go someplace that's doing what you might want to do, and volunteer and work with them and learn from them.
Trade secrets.
So then, well, not the trade secrets, but the skills that you talked about. Yeah, don't take the trade secrets, but the skills that you talked about. Get those skills and build those up, because there's a lot to running a nonprofit that people, don't necessarily think about. Volunteer for a while and you'll learn it.
If you think you're going to open up a business in general, go start with a small business and get some experience and exposure to what that means.
Yeah.
Nonprofit or for-profit before you do it would be my recommendation after not doing that.
Right.
So you mentioned kind of the partnerships, or let me take this back. Thinking through the fundraising part. So what is that kind of, is there anything more that you would give advice to nonprofits to help with the fundraising side?
Think outside the box, and I try to and pride myself on being pretty creative with some of the things that I like to come up and present to my clients. Everybody's doing the gala, everybody's doing the golf outing, everybody's asking for money to support. Think about what you as a nonprofit and the people at your nonprofit have to offer to either businesses or potential donors and sponsors, that they're getting something out of it more than just the good feeling that they're going to get. But frankly, for sizable donations, people typically, it's a tax write-off or the marketing or whatever, but think about the things that you can offer them that go above and beyond what everybody else is offering them for them to support you.
Right.
And so, for example, Chris Bayless, who has a sponsorship collective, he talks about throw out your gold, silver, platinum sponsorship packets. And especially here in North Texas, like I say, everybody's doing a gala.
Yeah.
So if you go up and say, hey, I'm doing a gala and I want you to be a $10,000 platinum sponsor, they're going, I just did one last month, and I got a table, and I had to try to find 10 friends that wanted to go and get hit up at the silent auction and everything else.
Haven't we been to one of those?
Oh man, and I've put those on and everything, but think about what you really have to offer to that potential sponsor, It might be that there's somebody on your board that works for a company that might be a good partner for that person, and maybe you offer to introduce them.
There you go.
Or it's, what do you have to offer besides just their name on the banner? Maybe they want to send their employees to come volunteer on a monthly basis.
To gain skills.
To build that partnership, to give back and be socially responsible. Maybe they need a keynote speaker at a big sales event. They're flying everybody into Dallas. They need a keynote speaker. And by the way, while you're up on stage talking about what a great company they are, you're bragging on them. They can't get up and brag on them.
Right.
So it's think outside the box, get creative about why somebody might want to partner with you, and look at it like a partnership. And that's the key is ask your donors, ask your sponsors, what can we do for you?
Exactly.
You know what we need with the with the funding and everything. This is the impact you're going to have, but what can we do for you? Is there anything that we could do? Maybe we can give all of your employees membership to our facility for a month, depending on what it is. So there's lots of opportunities besides just, we're going to put your banner on our website and a link, and we get 50 hits a month. So isn't that great news?
Sounds exciting to me personally, but I think that's great advice. Now I can see why you pick your clients. And I think it's also remembering, and you guys might agree with this, that it takes time to build and foster those relationships. So if you have to get into a situation where you are a nonprofit and you have to get fundraising, start planning ahead. Don't do it when you need it, just like you don't, go to networking when you need a job, or, you start building those and fostering those relationships from the beginning before you need the funds, as you're starting, as you're getting grants. I mean, it's a longer process, and don't expect that somebody's just overnight, like you said, going to give you $20 for gas. You got to build that relationship before you get that gas money.
Exactly. And I, quite often, my clients are nonprofits that they have a leadership that has the passion and the know-how for taking care of their clients, but they don't necessarily have the know-how for taking care of their donors.
Yeah.
And so that's where I can bring a lot of value to those clients from that direction of, and I asked an executive director once, I said, so what happens if somebody gets on your website and makes a $500 donation? And she's like, oh, we got that covered. Our website is set up to automatically send them a thank you email. And she was all excited. I was like, that is great. That is necessary. And I said, and then what do you do? And she just looked at me like,
the sweet sound of silence goes on. Yeah.
Why should we do anything more? And so then I sat down with them.
Well, they could be a potential future donor.
Well, exactly. you don't want to just, again, only talk to them when you ask for money. You want to talk to them all the time. And so it's pretty cool. I, gave them a lot of ideas and things that they could do. And about a month later, I got a call from her husband, who was on the board. And you could tell he was going through the list of donors. And he said, Mr. Ricker, this is such and such from such and such. And I just wanted to call and thank you for your donation and supporting us. And he was going through and he was calling it. And I asked him, I said, so how, and I was like, thank you, I appreciate the call. And I said, so how's it going? And he told me a story about one of the donors. He just thanked him for that. And I told him, you're only thanking them. You are not asking for anything. You're just thanking them.
Yeah.
You'll ask later. And he says, I called the one guy and I thanked him, and he's been a decent donor and everything. And at the end of it, he goes, so is there anything you need right now? And he said, well, we just got an insurance bill that's due. And he says, we're probably going to have to pay it out in monthly payments. And the guy said, well, how much is it? And he says, well, it's $1,100. He goes, I can cover that.
Wow.
And so he wasn't calling and asking for donations. He was calling to say thank you. And that person offered. And that's what you'll find a lot is people, what can I do to help you?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, again, reciprocity. Big fan. That's,
Gratitude.
referrals and reciprocity, and then gratitude. That's what I was going to say. But you have to give gratitude not expecting to get anything back either.
Exactly.
It comes full circle, but it may not be that circle.
That's a good way of putting it.
Well, and if I can interject real quick, I mean, think of the $500 donor. You don't know if, wow, was that a huge stretch to do the $500, or if that's, pocket change. Exactly. And so you don't know where that's at, and until you thank them and give them, now you're empowering them to have the opportunity to say, well, what more can I do? And there's just as a reminder, and in the reciprocity and the networking that we do here, there's a company that I need to introduce you to that I was recently introduced to, and it's a company called Caritas Fundraising. And he has put together a really neat package, because one of the challenges, you talk about the golf outings and the standard stuff that all these companies do. Well, if you equate down how much money in the what they really get in the donations, they're only getting about 20 cents ish on the dollar. For
Yeah.
every dollar that's put in, they only end up with 20 cents.
Wow.
And he has a program and a system that basically turns that into about 70 cents on the
Nice.
dollar versus the 20. And it's pretty amazing. You can do it with a lot less people, and it's a lot more impactful.
There's a group out there. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. Chive. Have you heard of them?
I think I've looked into them a little bit.
They're a
but
group of.
remind
It's
me.
just it's a bunch of business owners, and I met one person who's in the one in Austin. I haven't actually met the Dallas group of them, but they get together, and it's just a bunch of businessmen that have passion for helping people, and they basically put on fundraisers for nonprofits
Nice.
and donate the money.
Yeah. Well, and that's when a nonprofit comes to me and says, "Hey, we want to do a golf outing." I say, "No, you don't." So I've done golf outings that have been in existence for 20 years, and then I've started a golf outing, and they're both a lot of work. What you really want to do in the case of a golf outing is you want to find somebody, probably a business, that is going to put it on your behalf.
There you go.
And because you as a nonprofit, everybody thinks, well, I'll put on a golf outing and I'm going to invite all of my people and they're going to want to come play golf. Well, first of all, what percentage of your donors that you already have play golf? Second of all, they may be already giving you the maximum that they can give you. They can't afford to spend $100 to play golf. They can't take off work, things like that. If you're only picking from your own
Yeah.
donor pool, you're very limited. But if you can find a company, as a matter of fact, I have a meeting on Friday with a business that he loves to go play golf and go to these golf outings. And I told him, I said, what you need to do is do a golf outing on behalf of somebody else.
Yeah.
And then they'll market you. Your name is going to be on the top. So I love this. I'd like to meet the Chive folks around here and see.
Well, the funny thing is, and this is one thing I've learned just because of my connector mentality,
Yeah.
is that people don't realize there are people on both sides looking to connect. So I actually had a call the other day with somebody who was a business. They actually are a sports team. They they auction off their jerseys, and then they donate the money. And they didn't have groups to donate it to. So
Wow.
I've had that a couple times where they've asked me for groups to donate money to. I'm like, are you kidding me? You think they'd be pounding down your door? And it's the same thing, like what I said, with the job search process. You have a position that's open, and you have the employers that are looking, you have the candidates that are looking, but it's like, how do you mesh that up all the time? And that's, I guess, where we have connectors, right?
Well, and some of the problem I find, because I work with businesses too, to help them to grow and to market, maybe through and with nonprofits. Some of the problem is a nonprofit doesn't know how to acknowledge that donation properly. And so they maybe did the jersey one night and they sold it and they donated it to XYZ nonprofit, and they never said anything. Now, they're doing it because they want to do and they want to help. But it would be nice if they got some recognition in return.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
And I had a restaurant owner tell me, he says, I'm advertising these give back nights in our community, and the people that I'm doing them for aren't even advertising them. They're
Wow.
not even bringing me the people.
I've heard that a couple times.
And they don't ever thank them or recognize them. So I helped him with kind of putting together a little bit of a form to say, hey, if we do this, what are you going to be able to do? And so it's working with the nonprofits to say, you've got to thank them. You've got to, post it on Facebook, social media, whatever. You know,
Yeah.
scream from the rooftops and tell them that they helped you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, whenever I was doing some stuff in the sports industry, again, we would have the same concept, and we would actually give them part of the ticket pricing. If they brought people in, nothing would
Yeah.
come from them. So.
Well, and it's from a non-profit perspective, because I've gotten that offer a lot of times. And again, it's real tough because we go to our donors to help us buy baby food, to help us send somebody to Disney, to help with these things. So we're asking a lot.
Right.
And now we have this opportunity to go to a sporting event, and we have these tickets, and it's going to be a portion of that. And so now we've got to ask people, and again, it goes back to like the golf outing.
Right.
What percentage are going to want to be able to do it? And
to your
so,
point, though, Facebook, social media.
Exactly.
You know?
Just put it out there and go. And that's the best way. If you're able to, but you've got to be upfront with the sports team or with
Right.
whoever you're partnering with to say, here, this is what we can do. I know nonprofits that said we won't do any of those just flat out. They didn't, because they felt they were asking too many ways the other way. they didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
So
This is why I avoided nonprofit. It scares me. I feel like you spend so much time in any fundraising that you forget the initial mission, which is not actually normally accurate. But that was my fear. You know?
And that's why quite often now the executive director needs to be a fundraiser as well. But a lot of times you'll find that the executive director, they started the nonprofit because of their passion.
Right.
And the smart ones, if they aren't going to do the fundraising, they will either get a board member or staff or a fractional development officer that will come in and help them fundraise so they can keep focusing on their mission.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it, I think. So the other question I guess I have is you talked about partnerships beforehand. So let's talk a little bit about that. So one of the things that you mentioned on your promo that I hopefully everybody watched was talking about if you have a list of a lot of people, how many companies or people have asked you to use that list. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay, and this is, I have to be careful because with a lot of the networking I do, every time at any networking event, and I say I work with nonprofits, people will come up and they want to talk to me because they have an idea. And it's everything from when the hailstorms hit in Wiley, there was a gentleman that worked for a company in Dallas, not even out in Wiley, doing hail damage repair on cars. Mm-hmm. And he was like, if you will advertise with your nonprofit and have a big event there, I will come out and we will do the adjusting and everything, and we'll work with the insurance, and we'll do this, and we'll give you $2 for every car that we fix.
Right.
And again, it goes back to there's only so many times I can go to my donor. And so it's even like the restaurant nights. There's a percentage they're going to get, but is that going to be, basically you're wanting me to advertise to say 10,000 people, and you're going to pay me $2 a person for my mailing list. And nonprofits, we've got to be careful that we're not, selling our donors.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. I think that's hugely important. And you also have to be careful as a nonprofit to not endorse a certain company. Because if you endorse a company and they go in there and they do a crappy job, just to put it out there. Yep. And when they do that and they do the crappy job, then now you've endorsed them. And so all your clients that are donating money are like, well, you just sent us this horrible company.
Yeah, the guy didn't fix the hail damage at all. He made it worse. So you're exactly right. And that really, it goes back to building relationships. And I tell people that they need to build that relationship with the nonprofit before they're expecting the nonprofit to advertise them.
Right, most definitely.
And it goes back to, if you've built that relationship and you're out there, you're going to be getting that business. The nonprofit doesn't even have to tell anybody about you. You've done it because people like to do business they know, like, and trust.
Yes, most definitely. I mean, with your organization, do you do a lot of work with nonprofits?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we do. Obviously, because it's just smart marketing, right? So you do work with nonprofits, and I think one of the biggest thing that companies want is a little bit of recognition for their efforts to, line up with a nonprofit so that they can get some customers or something out of the deal. So at the end of the day, the profits kind of companies are looking for a profit, right? So that they got to answer their shareholders or their company employees or whoever.
You also have to consider whenever you are going to a nonprofit that to a corporation from a nonprofit perspective, they have a lot of people going to them.
Exactly.
And so if they do end up donating money to your cause or what you're doing because maybe they have a passion for it, if you don't go back to the gratitude thing, if you don't thank them for it, then why would they pick you the next time?
Exactly.
Or honor them in some way or do something. So
I've had executive directors and leaders say, we just got a $10,000 grant, to use it as an example, and we've got to tell everybody about that, because it's one thing is it's showing credibility. If they, if somebody like a Bank of America just gave you a $10,000 grant, that shows they did their due diligence. Uh-huh. And now you're telling everybody else that you passed through their due diligence. And I'm like, we're doing a big check and we're going to take a picture and we're going to broadcast. No, we can't tell anybody. And I get two reasons for it. The first one is, well, if we tell somebody that they gave us money, then another nonprofit is going to go to them for money.
Oh, no.
Well, guess what? A smart nonprofit knows who's giving money to who. So,
right.
Your Facebook page isn't the place that people are looking for to find out who to go to for money. And then the other thing is they're afraid that donors will think, oh, well, you just got $10,000 from them. You don't need my money. And I'm like, first of all, smart donors are going to know it takes more than $10,000 to run the agency, but it's a perfect opportunity when you're thanking that company for giving you that $10,000 to say, this $10,000 is going to this, and by the way, we also have this program if you'd like to help us. So in the thank, you can let them know that there's other ways they can help. But I've actually, at agencies, we've gone out and bought the great big check with the other company's logo and everything on it, with their permission, obviously. But we'll buy the big check, and we'll go to their office, and we'll stand in front of them and their signs, and we'll take pictures so we can promote it in order to be able to say thank you. And I've gotten pictures in the Dallas Business Journal with big checks for foundations because we suggested and we did it. But it was all about saying thank you.
Yeah.
And they loved it. And then, we do all kinds of other thank you things with those pictures and everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, also by being in the Business Journal, you're getting publicity yourself. So you're getting more recognition on the mission that you're going after as well.
Right.
So,
but that wasn't the reason, of course.
So speaking
but
of
it still works.
speaking of thank you and recognition, I'm curious. So probably one of the biggest challenges I can imagine with nonprofits is keeping the people that are volunteering motivated. So can you speak a little bit to that and what kind of strategies are used in there?
Oh, gosh.
And that in volunteer...
Accountable.
Exactly. Well, volunteer recognition and engagement and cultivation is just as important, and with many agencies that depend on volunteers, more important than donor recognition. And so everything from doing volunteer appreciation dinners, recognizing your volunteers. Hopefully you have a volunteer newsletter. If you have... if you have a consistent volunteer base, coming up with events and activities for your volunteers to do when they're not working with one agency and they don't have a lot of need for volunteers, but when they do, it's all at once. They need 20 or 30 people to help them. And so I'm asking, what do you do to engage them for 3 months until they need it? Well, nothing. And so it's like, well, let's come up with some things that they can do to help you. And even if it's just something as simple as you send out a volunteer newsletter and you say, hey, we just did this post where we thanked somebody for a $20,000 grant. We'd love it if you would go like that post and comment and thank them yourselves. And you've now gotten your volunteers to feel like they contributed in that $20,000.
Yeah, everybody wants a mission and a purpose and to know that you do it for yourself, but it's also nice to be recognized because the time is valuable. I mean, It's one of the most valuable assets we have. We only have so much. We got to use it wisely. So
Definitely that's a great point, Jeff. Don't forget to thank your volunteers just like you thank your donors. And a lot of them you will cultivate into also being donors and probably more regular and consistent donors. But yeah, you definitely want to, especially if you count on those volunteers to run your agency, you want to make sure you don't. We have a tendency to burn volunteers out.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of like our kids. We'll just, until they say no, we'll keep putting on them and putting on them. And so
maybe
you
that's
have
how
to
you do it with their parent. No, I'm kidding. No, I do. Ask my son who's out there right now.
Yeah, it's like I need this. Yeah. So no, you really want to be conscientious about how you treat your volunteers as well.
Well, that brings up a good point. You mentioned how you try to cultivate those companies that are donating ahead of time. So I can imagine you're probably trying to cultivate getting volunteers in the door, or making it a lot of volunteers. So that many hands make light work kind of idea.
Right. Well, and it goes back to that. What do you have for them to do? And sometimes I don't want to say you make up things, but you look for things that need to be done that, maybe that room doesn't have to be painted today, but it would be nice if it were repainted. And by the way, we could reach out to this company and say, hey, we need to get this room painted and we'd love you to pay for the paint and send the people to do it and treat them right and maybe cultivate some continuous volunteers from that company that you engage them well enough, they have a passion for what you're doing, and maybe they want to come back on their own without their company.
Yeah, I think I could go on all day about the volunteer side because I've had a lot of volunteers that have worked for companies I've been involved in, and it's an interesting group to work with. And so I think it is definitely important to make sure that you do recognize them, keep them involved, get them to bring their friends to be involved, and let them know the purpose of what they're doing. But also make sure you hold them accountable when they're doing the things that they are doing.
Well, as much
that's the other side I could go off on.
And just like with donors, I recommend you ask your volunteers why they're doing it and what they want to get out of it. Some volunteers, they wish they could give financially, but they can't, so they're going to come give of their time.
Right.
And other volunteers are doing it because they really love your clients and they want to be there. And other volunteers are doing it because they like to talk about doing it. And some are doing it because they're also giving you funding, and so everybody has a different reason, and so it's important that you understand what they need to get out of it so you can give that to them.
Hey, Lon, if I wanted to ask a question, you talked about the volunteer newsletter, and I was curious, what do you see in those types of newsletters? What are some things that at least cause people to read them and make it a worthwhile time expenditure and effort?
Stories, frankly, and that should be in all of your newsletters, telling stories, whether it's to volunteers or not. But with volunteers, usually it's some inside information about what's happening.
Everybody likes to get the inside scoop.
Everybody likes the inside scoop. It's a good place to recognize your volunteers. I work with one agency, and in their volunteer newsletter, they list all of the volunteer anniversaries for that month. And the year. They've got volunteers that have been there consistently for 18 years.
Wow.
So they're listing, the 18-year anniversary, here these people are 15 years this month, and so they list. So it's pretty cool. You open a newsletter and there's your name over there, and it's giving, and everybody's going, wow. And then the next time they see them, they're like, wow, Mary, you've been here 18 years. Yeah. So now you've brought that appreciation and that recognition. So it's. Think of your family Christmas, letter, except make it, just about the family. You don't have to brag so much, but give them some inside information. Let them know what's going on. Hey, we did this event, and our goal was to raise this much, and because of your help, make sure you give them credit for what they've done. Because of your help, we actually raised this much, and this is what we're doing, and this is the impact.
Excellent.
Yeah, so recently your company actually put something out about you and things that you've done. And how did that make you feel, I guess?
Oh, yeah, that was great. It was good feedback to just get that recognition, and you stick it out on LinkedIn profiles and Facebook and social media, etc. And that makes the volunteers feel good about what they're doing.
Yeah, first I was going to say, if somebody does 18 years, you better recognize them.
Right. Well, and what agencies, you just said that, Jeff, and one of the things I'm going to start recommending to people is it was great that your company put out in your newsletter what you did. But if you were doing that for a certain nonprofit, and that's who, it was just one kind of a thing, why doesn't that nonprofit send a letter to your company about you? And
that would be
great. It's like this, Mary's been here for 18 years and this is what she's doing. And you send that to a corporation, and if that ends up in their newsletter, it makes Mary feel even better. But also, it's a great marketing thing for the nonprofit. Again, it's easier for me as a nonprofit to brag on you or brag on your company. But that ends up in the newsletter. Guess what? Now you just advertised me as a nonprofit, and people are going, wow, if they'll take Jeff, they'll take me. Or, or they'll, so, as nonprofits, we should be telling companies the good that their employees are doing.
Right. Yeah, I think that's very important. Now, his was for his service, but in the military. But same difference. They're recognizing that as well. So
yeah. And thank you for your service. Appreciate that.
All right. So going back to, what would you say about companies that do want to partner with nonprofits? What's the biggest reason to do that? How do you leverage that? Kind of what's that partnership look like? Or so on the gratitude, and I keep going back to it, and I'm sorry because it's so important. But
no, it is, and really that's why it should be about partnerships, not just sponsorships. It really needs to be about partnerships. And companies now, luckily, they're talking about being socially responsible. Millennials are saying, whether it's true or not, but they're saying they would rather go to a company that's socially responsible than get paid more. I don't know, I'm sure that's in their head, but would they really take less money when they've got those school loans? So companies are trying to be a little bit more socially aware. They're wanting to get more engaged. But it really goes back to every company is going to have a different reason and a different need.
Correct.
And so from a nonprofit perspective, to partner with a company, you need to ask them what they want. From a company perspective, you need to find out who you believe in and want to help. And maybe you go to your employees. There's a lot of companies that will do that. They'll say, we're going to pick 5 nonprofits this year, this quarter, or whatever to support, and they'll recommend the employees will make recommendations. But and this is where I help companies. Don't be afraid to ask what they're going to get out of it, or to share what they need out of it. Because again, a lot of nonprofits, they might not even realize they have that asset to give. And it might be that we want to support you, we want to help you, we want our employees to come, and then we want to do a slideshow at the big corporate event, and we want you there.
Right.
We want to do a food drive, and we expect you to come pick up the food and make a speech. I've been at a number of places where people have done food drives, and the agency has been like, well, they should just deliver it when they're done. And I'm like, no, they want somebody to come publicly thank them. And you know, I used to go do a baseball team up in Frisco. It was a bunch of 12 to 17-year-old kids and a couple of coaches. But I would go up there at 8 o'clock at night, and they would load the truck, and it was stuff that could fit in my pickup. But it was important to go thank them. So, but I had talked to the coaches and the company the baseball company, and they needed somebody to come thank their kids. And because they were trying to teach the kids things.
Yeah, that's great.
Which is a no-brainer. But again, sometimes people get so focused on their clients or on their own needs that they don't think that. So from a company perspective, don't be afraid to tell the nonprofit what you need. And if they're not willing to be a partner and work in that, then maybe find another partner.
You know, that's said for, like, I think every company, every group, and you might be able to, both of you might recognize this. So, you know, for me, it's like you work in a company, and I'd say I work in HR, and HR is out there servicing our clients, right? But we forget to service ourselves as an HR community, or project management, or IT. You may have the worst technology in your group, but you're making sure that the business runs smoothly.
Right.
This is kind of funny. So it's that same concept of making sure that you look at all the stakeholders, including yourself, the volunteers, the clients, and look and make sure everybody's getting recognized for the work that they're doing.
Right.
I think a great idea just kind of popped in my head, so I'm going to share it. Shocking.
I'll take it.
Is, you know, maybe if whenever somebody volunteers, that you automatically create like a recognition letter that they could take to an employer to talk about the skills that they gained while they were there. So they can have it as a reference or, you know, some sort of thing that
Not
they
a
can
bad
utilize.
idea.
You know, so that's a way that you're helping them back by them donating their time.
Well, I was going to share just a quick story. I was part of a company, and I was put, you know, one of those, all right, hey, Darin, go find us a nonprofit we can go do something for. So you look for it, you find it, and we did the food bank, real easy, kind of easy. You show up, you do your thing. And this was my first time doing it. It was a new experience all the way around. But what was amazing is hey, it's, you know, you're doing some work, you're putting everything in the boxes, you're getting it all ready to go. But at the end of it, they make you wait just a little bit, and they take that moment and they say, this is how many people you're feeding. This is how many, and this is how much. And
that purpose.
There was 4 of us together of the you know, the little company we were doing this, and that was a pause. We all, I mean, there was that moment of, wow, really? That was that thank you that it all of a sudden inspired me to, even with another group, to then go and do it again, because that meant something. That was like, wow, we really did. It wasn't just throwing a whole bunch of cans into a box and moving stuff around. Wow, this is what we did.
You made an impact.
Exactly.
Wow, good for them. Good for them for sharing
Goes
that.
back to that purpose. Like I said, we all have to have a purpose, and knowing that you're doing something and knowing what it happened. I mean, that's a huge thank you, I think. So
Right.
I love that story.
Well, and another thing from the partnership reciprocity idea, and back to what you need out of it, because I've worked in companies and for companies, and $100 ring to a golf outing, and for their silent auction afterwards, and he'd go play golf, and he'd try to chat up the guys out on the golf course, and, you know, try to get some business, and then at the event afterwards, he'd try to talk to the women and compliment them on their jewelry and things, and try to get some business, and the ring would get raffled off. And I'd say, so how's that doing for business? He's like, well, not really very good. I'm playing some golf, but I'm not getting any business out of it. And I said, well, did you know that at a lot of events like galas and things like that, where they have silent and live auctions, I says, sometimes the night before the gala or earlier that evening, they have a special reception for the donors, for the sponsors that are part of that event. He said, no. And I said, so if it's a high-end enough event, if you donated a $5,000 ring, we negotiate that you're at that event with that ring to help get the bidding up. So the purpose that you're walking around with all of these high-end sponsors, and you're showing the ring and you're talking it up, and people are getting to know you as the diamond guy, as the ring guy, and now you've gotten a smaller community of people, but they're the people that can afford you. And I was like, would you like to meet those people, those nonprofits? He's like, yes.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so hire me as part of your marketing, and I can introduce you to those nonprofits that can meet that need. Because obviously different nonprofits have different levels of donors and auctions and things like that. So that went back to his need wasn't to put his name on a banner. His need was to actually meet the people and be associated with that ring. So it's that, how can everybody meet what they need? Obviously, I'm going to get them to bump up to a $5,000 or a $10,000 ring for the nonprofit to auction off, because their donors and sponsors are going to be worth a whole lot more. So it's that get creative, think outside the box. If you're a company, what do you need? Is it the recognition? Is it a place to send your volunteers? Is it just to do something in the community? Is it because you know that the board president owns most all the buildings in town and you want to be able to be at that event? So work together with things like that. Find somebody at the nonprofit that understands that everybody has a need, and you can help each other a lot.
That's amazing. I think that's a great concept. And
it's all about getting to your niche. I mean, what you did is the simple thing that virtually all businesses and all people looking for jobs is finding exactly what is that I'm looking for, and then targeting it. And with the jewelry piece, that makes total sense, but he wouldn't see it because that's not where he's looking.
Well, and he didn't know. He had no clue how nonprofits work. And
that's where you always come back to the constant and never-ending improvement and constant never-ending education piece of, that's why we network, that's why we talk with. I wouldn't have thought of that either. Now I will, because Lon said it and I was sitting here.
Yeah.
And so that's where the great ideas suddenly bubble up, and sometimes it's simple as a throwaway, what seems to be a throwaway conversation suddenly becomes, well, wow, that's the idea that really took something somewhere.
I think there's no such thing as a throwaway conversation.
well, maybe not.
And
it all comes back in the long run.
It goes back to what you're so good at as well, is when you're talking to people, finding out what they need.
Yeah.
And so that's how I get my clients. There's no cookie cutter, this is how I'm going to raise money for you. It's, what do you need? What do I have? How can I help? So it's the same thing with a corporation, a company. What do you need? How can we help? What kind of a partnership? So it's, like I say, some nonprofits just, they don't even send a newsletter out. So it's like, let me help you, create a newsletter and put this in place. And when you start seeing how the revenue can be generated from that and understand the benefits of it. So it's what do you need? How can I help?
Right. That's it. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to make a comment. I can see the value add that, obviously you bring to the table. And I'm sure that's just one example of many that, you can't even envision until you're there consulting with the companies and trying to help them out and see things strategically.
Well, and I don't share too many of them publicly, because then you're not going to hire
Right,
me.
sure.
I want you to know this was recorded, by the way.
Yeah,
so.
no.
You're just throwing out a few nuggets.
What we've learned about Lon is that he doesn't work inside the box. He kind of tramples and
Yeah.
dances around the box
Right.
completely
I
and
think
way
Lon
out
has
of
kind
it.
of created
been
his
around
own
the box
box.
enough.
That's
Yeah.
kind of the way that works.
I think he's probably heard that before.
Not always good.
So let's talk about those bonfires now.
Lawn fires.
No, lawn fires?
Lawn
Fire.
fires.
Okay, so explain.
I have property out in Wiley, and there's a lot of trees and things. So after windstorms, all the branches fall, and so number of years ago, it got to where I would just call some friends and go, "Hey, we're doing a lawn fire." And at the time I was out there, I lived and traveled in my RV. I had no chairs, so I was like, "If you want to sit down, bring a chair."
Or a blanket.
or blanket, although
it might catch on fire.
It's out in the country pretty good, so chair gets you up above the spiders and ants.
Oh, yeah.
If you want anything to drink, bring it. If you want anything to eat, bring it. And so everybody'd come out there with their kids, and we'd torch a brush pile, and so.
Has Tom been to one of your lawn fires? Because he just said they're great. Now, I think I did
Actually,
get an invite.
I have a
and
picture
I didn't
someplace
go,
of
so.
Tom at a bonfire with the fire department. One of my early bonfires.
Why is that not
sounds like a
shocking to
story.
you?
I don't know if Tom realizes I have that picture, but
He does now.
That was. But the fire had already burned down pretty good, but somebody saw the flames up pretty high, and they. by the time the fire department got there, it was down pretty good. But so yeah, we have some good stories.
That is funny.
But
is he like right next to him? Is he helping them out, like, or
actually in that picture they made me put out the major
pushing him out of the way
fire while we had a fire we were cooking over here. So at one point I think he had the garden hose and he was just standing there kind of helping too. So control.
That's hilarious.
Always
But
learning something new.
It's about relationships. It's, as you know, anytime you get together, it's just, building those relationships.
Well, actually, we had Sheriff on the show, which I met at another one of your events that you bring everybody
breakfast.
together. Yeah, your breakfast.
Which was a non-networking event.
Non-networking
Third
event.
Friday, I just invite a bunch of people over, or not over, but we meet someplace for breakfast. And the idea is this is not networking. This is about building relationships and friends. And I was like, look, I'm going to need tools. I got work I got to do, and I need to know who has what tool so I can borrow it. So yeah, there's been a few, and that's good. You become friends, and then you do business.
Speaking of, I need somebody who can work on a four-wheeler, okay? So if anybody's got some mechanical capabilities in Carrollton, need you tonight,
all right,
okay?
there we
That's
go.
Right. So all the listeners, please, by the way, send somebody our way, because we need to fix this four-wheeler my son's waited a year for. So, and so actually we had Sheriff on the show, and he did a great job.
He did. He was my score mentor to begin with, and we now get together for lunch and stay in touch.
He's amazing. And actually he provided a book afterwards that said Attitude is Gratitude. He sent a thank you letter. So, I mean, that was really amazing for him to just think about doing that, for being a guest on our show, so that was really cool. Feel pressure.
Excellent. I do. Well, I do.
Yeah, but he knows the ring guy.
Yeah, true that. He knows the right people, so yeah, that's interesting. So, I'm getting stalled here.
You're thinking rings, okay. Rings, four-wheelers. Maybe the ring guy knows not working four-wheelers.
Yeah, for
I'm
those
still going
keeping
to
score at
four-wheeler.
home, Melissa's quite red now. What happened?
It's the pants. I'm just ricocheting
There
off the
you
red
go.
pants I'm wearing. There we go. All right. Well, I think that, again, to Jeff's point, that you offer a great service, and I can see why a lot of companies would definitely utilize you and why you're so popular every time I see you at the networking events. He's got crowds around him. But you know what? When I've gone with him, it's great because he'll go up and he'll go, hey, I've got to introduce you to Melissa. So he's out there and he's got all these people waiting to talk to him, and he stops to introduce them to somebody else that he feels is,
That's awesome.
That's how people have done that for me. It's reciprocity. It's all about it. And you've introduced me to a lot of people yourself, so it's
a quick question, kind of maybe rolling way back to starting out, kind of doing this. How did you, or what did you do to craft your message that helps a nonprofit? If they don't know you, if they haven't networked, of the few people in this Metroplex that might not know who you are. If they don't, what might be the catalyst to find you, or what would be that message that you're going to send out to them that they would know here?
Interestingly, all of my business has come from introductions and networks.
Yeah.
I knew that answer. I was waiting for that.
And I actually, somebody tried to set up my website for me. Oh, you need this for lead generation and all that. And I was like, I don't want to do lead generation. It's about relationships.
Because the leads you're going to get are not going to be the people that you're going to want to even work with or understand.
First, my website did have some things on there about if this idea is going to scare you off, don't even call me.
Right.
And I was told, you can't say that.
But you can.
But I can say it in person a little easier. But so yeah, it's getting to know people. I've met with executive directors that I could tell that there really wasn't going to be a connection there, or they weren't going to want to be creative. And so this isn't going to be a good partnership.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like in coaching. You have to find somebody that's willing to be coached, that's willing to listen. Exactly. And, I wanted to go back to one other point real quickly when we were talking about thinking about what they need. And this is kind of a message more so to the businesses and to the volunteers and to the nonprofits, for-profits, is sometimes leaders, that's the biggest thing. The answer is always right in front of our faces, and we always forget to look right in front of our faces and ask ourselves that question. And sit there and think, what do I need? What am I trying to accomplish? And how can I do that? And what are creative ways? And it sounds like that's what you really can bring to the table, is getting them to stop, think,
right,
and find ways to get that accomplished. So,
well, exactly. What are they really trying to accomplish? What are their goals? And then looking for a partner that's going to help help them get to those goals.
And sometimes it's just asking the right questions to make them realize what that is, because sometimes we don't even know what we need. We just
Right.
can't even figure it out because
Somebody
there's so many
said
things.
I need to go help a nonprofit. It's like, well, but yeah, exactly. It's
Right.
that conversation of understanding why.
Well, anybody wants to reach you, what would be the best approach?
Call me. I
We can
do
have people go
I
to the
do-
radio show to reach out to you is
Yeah.
one method.
So, Facebook.com, Ricker Dynamics.
Okay.
I try to post things out there and share things out there to advertise other people. I post jobs out there, typically nonprofit stuff. I do have a website, rickerdynamics.com, that has my phone number and everything, but it's a little bit about me, but it's, like I say, it's more of, reach out LinkedIn, Lon Ricker. But if you're going to send me a LinkedIn request, do me a favor and put a message and tell me
As
why.
the why?
Because if I see a LinkedIn request and we got 20 people in common, I assume you're just going out and targeting everybody, and I don't accept it. Tell me who you are or why you'd like to connect, because it's all about relationships.
Thank goodness you connected with me, man.
I think I reached out to you first.
Probably. So we're actually sharing the website on Facebook
thank you.
Live. And, of course, anybody can always reach our guests at www.j2bradio.com. You can send us emails, and we'll make sure it gets out to whoever our guests are. That's another
Well, I
way we can do
appreciate
it.
you having me here, and tell me other than promoting this, what can I do to help you?
Well, I'm waiting for your book. That's what I'm waiting for. Are you writing that yet?
No.
Oh, you're going to do it,
No.
right? Well, maybe we'll just write one about you because you're such a great guy.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Okay, well, I expect a barbecue invite. That's all I want. Or not
Okay.
barbecue, but bonfire.
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 You know what? And I get real creative with those I post on Facebook. Tonight I'm torching a brush pile. And so that's usually... See, so
Just
now you
tag
have
me.
to-
Just tag
so
me.
now you have to follow me, and I don't do Facebook Messenger, so don't message me. Just show
Okay.
up.
So on your lawn fire, just curious, have you caused that to be any kind of a donational type of process where?
That's smart.
I came real close one time, but I didn't want people to do it. I didn't want them to not show up because they thought I was asking for money.
Yeah, it's all about
That-
fun, it sounds
well,
like.
that's,
so.
yeah, that's one of those where maybe you make it behind the scenes. Oh, by the
I have
way,
invited
hey,
nonprofits there, so if they network, that's up to them.
He
There
just
you
likes
go.
to have a good time at
Yeah,
a party,
right.
right?
I don't want to work.
this is the lawn fire. There'll be no nonprofiting, no working. Gotcha.
I am the nonprofit.
You are the
in that case.
exactly.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Again, you can reach Lon or any of our guests at www.j2bradio.com. Darin, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
And, of course, Jeff, thank you for coming on today. You're supposed to thank me back because we're doing gratitude and reciprocity here.
Well, thank you, Melissa.
Okay. See, there we go. Now, thank Lon. Everybody thank everybody.
Thank you all for having me. It's
All
great
right,
to
and
see you.
so appreciate it, and look forward to next Thursday, 7 p.m. You can watch us on Facebook Live, hear us at fbrn.us, and remember, life is limitless. Are you ready to own your journey? Okay, so keep that on. We're done, but I need you to do a dance move for me, please,
Yeah.
while we're still on Facebook Live, because I have
yeah,
everybody
just
do a
did it.
dance.
You missed it.
I missed it? You knew you were supposed to, didn't
I
you?
dance around the question.
No, I want to move. I want some, like, MC Hammer bust move. No?
Yeah.
Nothing?
No, this is
It's just the head shake. That's the
that's the move.
Right, this is all you're gonna get.
I would love to do a dance.
Now, Sheriff came over here, and he actually showed me how to do, like, some ballroom
Well, he
dancing.
does that.
Yeah,
stuff,
or
see?
salsa. Or,
So,
yeah.
I got motorcycle boots on, or I would. If I wore my dance shoes, but I can't.
Well, guess what? I have no. All right, we're good. You can go ahead and shut that off. We're done.
Thanks.